So today, we're diving into one of the most consequential military campaigns in all of history, Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul. It's an incredible story of ambition, genius, and, yeah, a whole lot of brutality that didn't just conquer a nation, it lit the fuse that would blow up the Roman Republic and give birth to an empire. But here's the thing, it wasn't just some straightforward conquest. The real question is, how did a politician who was on the brink of total personal and political ruin manage to turn a simple provincial command into a legendary, world-changing victory? It was really the ultimate high-stakes gamble.
See, this story doesn't actually begin on the muddy battlefields of Gaul. No, it begins in the cutthroat political arena of Rome itself, where one of its most brilliant minds was, well, completely and utterly cornered. You gotta understand just how desperate Caesar's situation was. By 59 BC, he had powerful enemies gunning for him, and he was absolutely drowning in debt. So what's his solution? Something audacious. He secures a 5-year command as governor over Gaul. Now, this is huge because it gives him control of 4 veteran legions, soldiers who would become loyal to him. All he needed now was the perfect excuse for a massively profitable war. And you know what? Almost immediately, fate hands him the perfect opportunity. There's a crisis brewing right on the Gallic border, and Caesar sees his chance to frame himself not as some invading conqueror, but as a protector. 368,000. Just let that number sink in. That's how many men, women, and children of the Helvetii tribe were planning this massive migration right through territory belonging to Rome's allies. Caesar immediately spins this not as a migration, but as an existential threat, giving him the perfect justification to intervene. And his response? Oh, it was pure Caesar. Swift, decisive, and honestly an engineering marvel. In just 15 days, his legions throw up a fortified wall nearly 20 miles long. He blocks the Helvetii, then pursues them into open country where his legions have the advantage and just crushes them. For context, the river crossing that took the Helvetii 20 days, the Romans did it in 1. So what you're seeing here is Caesar establishing his playbook. He pulls the same move shortly after against the Germanic Suebi tribe, who were threatening Roman allies. Each time, he swoops in, wins a big, decisive victory, and polishes his image as the one indispensable defender of Gaul. Okay, so protecting allies is great and all, but for Caesar, that just wasn't enough. He knew deep down the power of public opinion back home in Rome. His next moves weren't just about military strategy, they were about creating a legend. He didn't just need wins. He needed spectacular victories, things no Roman had ever done before. These next campaigns were basically audacious public relations stunts, all designed to capture the imagination of the folks back in Rome. And just look at what he does. He becomes the first Roman general ever to cross the Rhine into Germany, building an unbelievable bridge in just 10 days to get it done. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he does something even more shocking. He invades Britain, an island people thought was literally on the edge of the known world, a land of myths and monsters. And guess what? It worked. It worked perfectly. The military gains? Kind of limited, but the propaganda value was off the charts. Rome was absolutely captivated. A 20-day public Thanksgiving was declared in his honor, an unheard-of amount of time, which cemented his heroic status and shut his political enemies up, at least for a little while. But here's the thing. While Caesar is off building this legend for himself, back in Gaul, something else is building: resentment. The Gauls are tired of the Roman occupation, and they finally find a leader who can unite them and fight back. Enter Vercingetorix. This guy was a total game changer. He was charismatic, he was clever, and most importantly, he understood Roman tactics. He knew he couldn't beat the legions head-on in a pitched battle, so he used scorched earth tactics and strategic retreats, giving Caesar the biggest challenge of his life. And this all explodes at the Battle of Gergovia. Here, Vercingetorix just flat-out outmaneuvers Caesar, baiting his legions into a disastrous attack on a fortified town. It was a humiliating, costly loss, the first time Caesar had been so completely and utterly beaten in Gaul. Now, in his own writings, because of course Caesar wrote about all this, he was a master of spin, he reported losing around 700 men and 46 of his veteran centurions. A big loss, for sure, but one he tried to frame as manageable. Yeah, but modern historians, they paint a much grimmer picture, suggesting his casualties could have been as high as 6,000. This wasn't just a minor setback. This was a full-blown catastrophe that nearly shattered his army and his entire campaign. His whole gamble was this close to collapsing. But you have to remember who we're talking about. Caesar was not a man who accepted defeat. He pursued Vercingetorix, trapping him and his massive army of 80,000 men in the hill fort of Alesia. This was it, the final epic showdown for the fate of all Gaul. And what happens next is, without a doubt, one of the most incredible, most audacious feats of military engineering in all of history. Caesar, even though he was outnumbered by the army inside the city, decides to besiege the besiegers. Okay, so get this. He builds two massive walls, a 16-kilometer wall facing inward to keep Vercingetorix trapped, and an even longer 21-kilometer wall facing outward to protect himself from the massive Gallic relief army he knew was on its way. He basically sealed his own army inside a giant military donut, ready to fight a war on two fronts at the same time. It's insane. And just look at the odds here. Caesar's got maybe 50,000 men. Inside Alesia, 80,000 Gauls. And marching down on his back is a relief army of over 100,000. He is wildly outnumbered, maybe by more than 2 to 1. The situation is, by any rational measure, completely impossible. Things inside got desperate, and they got brutal, fast. To save food, Vercingetorix kicks out all the civilians, the women, the children, the elderly. He figured Caesar would have to let them pass. But Caesar, he refused. Thousands of people were trapped in the no-man's land between the two armies and just left to starve to death. The final battle was just absolute chaos. The Gauls are attacking from both sides. They finally break through the outer wall. And just as the Roman line is about to completely collapse, with his entire army facing annihilation, Caesar himself grabs a shield, runs to the front, and personally leads his reserves in a final, desperate charge. His appearance rallied his men, shattered the Gallic attack, and snatched a legendary victory from the jaws of certain defeat. And just like that, it was over. Vercingetorix surrendered. Gaul was conquered. But you have to understand, for Caesar, this was never really the end game. Gaul was the training ground, the source of his wealth, the forge that created his unstoppable, loyal army. The real prize? The real prize was always Rome itself. So, the conquest is complete. Caesar has it all, the glory, the unimaginable wealth, and an army that is fiercely personally loyal to him. And that leaves us with one terrifying question. What happens when a man with that much power decides it's time to go home?